7 με 8.30 το βράδυ έχουμε μελέτη της Αγίας Γραφής. Every Tuesday, 7 to 8:30, we have the Bible study in English. Everyone is welcome. On Tuesday, 15th July, we have a break because I will be in Adelaide from the 14th to 18th of July, 4 days, Monday to Friday. And every Thursday, 7 to 8:15, we have a lesson of Byzantine music, of chanting. Those who are interested are most welcome to join the group. Μία ανακοίνωση, brothers and sisters, we found Jesus in Capernaum, as the Gospel said that we read during the liturgy. It says, at that time, as Jesus entered Capernaum, a centurion came forward to him, beseeching him and saying, Lord, my servant is lying paralyzed at home in terrible distress. So, just from this very first verse, let's draw some insight. Jesus is in Capernaum. Where is Capernaum? Where is Capernaum? A good advice, when you read the Gospel and you find a name, a place or a name, it is so easy to type the name in Google and will give you all information. So easy. You don't have to do research into books, into libraries, as we did in our years. During my time, in my early years, we didn't have internet. Everything was manual and it was hard work. We going to libraries, encyclopedias, do a research, very hard work. Now it's so easy. Now it's so easy. You type Capernaum and it gives you all the information that you know, and you acquire knowledge. Knowledge is power. Capernaum is in the north side of the Lake of Galilee. And the Gospel of Matthew says that Jesus, after his baptism and the temptation that he had in the desert, left Nazareth and went to Capernaum and used Capernaum, that village, that city, as his base of his mission. Most of his time, he was around the Lake of Galilee in the cities, in the heights of Golan, which is north side, even northern of the Lake of Gennesaret, in Mount Tabor, a couple of times in Samaria, and about 4 times in Judea. But most of the times, he was in Capernaum. Why this is the name of that town? Capernaum in Hebrew means the village of Nahum, and it derived its name from the birth town of prophet Nahum. That's why it's called Capernaum, village of Nahum, of the prophet Nahum. And from that town, Peter, Andrew, John, and James are coming from. The other apostles, except Judas, are coming from the other parts of Galilee. Judas Iscariot is not a Galilean. He was coming from another place. Now, Jesus used Capernaum as his base for his mission. Most of the miracles that he did were in Capernaum. Now, the gospel pericope that we read today is a continuation after Jesus spoke in the mount about his Beatitudes, and the topics that he used in his teachings. For example, he used issues dealing with fasting, marriage, prayer, and many other issues, divorce, wealth, and many other issues. After he finished his teaching on the Mount of Beatitudes, he came down and he immediately, entering Capernaum, he healed a leper. After that healing of the leper, a centurion met him in Capernaum and begged him to heal his slave. Now, we go in details to the gospel reading, so you will see some important facts there. The gospel says a centurion came to him. What is a centurion? What is a centurion?
Soldier, Roman soldier. Roman soldier.
It is an office of the Roman officer. Cent, in English, means 100. Doesn't it? A cent, 100 cent. In Greek is ekatondarchos. He who is the leader of 100 men. In English, we call centurion. The leader, the chief, the captain of 100 soldiers. So that centurion was an officer of the Roman army. He had power, he had authority. Jesus, in status, social status, was lower than the centurion. The centurion belonged to the conquering force. Jesus, as a Jew, was a slave of the Romans, because every people of the land of Israel and around all the Mediterranean Sea, all the countries, were occupied by the Romans. It was the Roman Empire. So Jesus, in social status, was lower from that centurion. Despite of this fact, that centurion, the chief, comes to Jesus and begs him to heal his what? His slave. I'll give you some translational mistakes that exist in the text that you don't pick it up. The Greek text says, «Ο πες μου βέβλητε παραλελειμμένος». Ο πες, in Greek, είναι το παιδί, απλά ελληνικά. Αλλά σημαίνει και δούλος. It means a slave as well. Well, the Romans didn't have servants, they had slaves. Slavery was the norm of those times. Even today, slavery is in some parts of the globe the norm. People work just for their food, nothing else. They work just to eat the minimum of food, and they work as slaves. It's today, don't be surprised. Always slavery will be existing, even among the most civilized countries. It exists. So the Romans had slaves, and the centurion, the chief, says to Jesus, "My slave is in terrible pain. Please heal him." Jesus says to him, "I will come to your house and I will heal you." The centurion says, "No, you don't need to come to my house. I'm not worthy for you to come in my house. Just say a word from where you are now, and my slave will be healed." Just say a word, and my servant, my slave will be healed. You don't need to come to my house. From here, say something, and my slave will be healed in my house. I'm not worthy for you to come to my house. For I am a soldier, an officer, and I give a command, and my soldiers obey, and I say to my slave, "Do this," and he does it. So, say a word, and everything will be okay. My slave will be okay, will be healed. Jesus, in surprise, astounded, declares to the people around him, "Not even in Israel have I found such a faith." And he says to the centurion, go home, your servant is already healed. And his slave was healed. So, after this event, Jesus walks in the house of Peter, where he finds his mother-in-law in fever, sick in fever. And he heals her, and she comes and serves everyone in the house. And around in the house of Peter, a lot of sick people are gathered, demonians, and Jesus heals them all. Imagine such an event. Can you imagine yourselves being in that era in the Peter's house and seeing all these healings? Have you ever, with your mind, noetically, transferred yourselves back 2,000 years in the company of Jesus? Have you ever done it? Just imagine it. So many healings, so many healings. So much compassion of the Lord to the people. So much compassion. The Lord is compassionate and merciful. So, out of this text, let us derive some messages, important messages. Let's examine first the centurion's request. Do you know what was the status of slaves of those times? The Romans called them res in Latin language. Res means a thing. They didn't have the status of a human person, the dignity of a person. They were sold in markets. Like a couple of centuries ago, 3 centuries ago, that was the norm in the United States with the Negroes, with the black people, the Africans. The Africans were arrested back in Africa by gangs of people, put in ships, transferred in the United States, especially in the south states of the United States, where there were plantations and they needed a lot of people to work for free. So, transferred there, and they sold in markets, in an auction, $5, $7, $8, $9, $11. He who gave the most money, the better bid, he could get the slave. Chained, taken to the plantations, work just for food, not even having the least of human honor and dignity. That was the case of the Roman Empire as well. So that slave didn't worth anything. He worth some denarii when he was well, healthy. After he got sick, paralyzed, he was useless. Didn't worth anything. Would this be discarded? Left to die, buried, that's it, finished. Another one would come. But that centurion, strangely, had compassion for whom? For a slave, a paralyzed, sick slave, who would worth nothing. So, what was the feeling? What were the feelings in the heart of that centurion? He had feelings of dignity and honor to the human person regardless of the status. Not only the status of the health as well of every human. That's why, although he would be better off to discard that slave, he comes to Jesus, who was inferior in social status from him, and begs him to heal his servant. So, the first message we get is compassion, mercy, and dignity of the human person. Every human person is worth of honor, because every human person, regardless of the social status, is an icon of God. And as an icon of God, it worth dignity and honor. Number one. Second, Jesus says to the centurion, I will come to your house and heal you. The centurion said, no, you don't need to come. You don't need to come physically. Just say a word. Say a word and my slave will be healed. Imagine the faith that this centurion, although he was not a Jew, not a believer like the Jews and the disciples, was a pagan. But he was believing that Jesus is able, with one word, to heal his slave. That's why he said to Jesus, you don't need to come to my house. Say a word from here, and my slave will get well. Because I am a soldier, I'm an officer of the Roman army, I have soldiers under my authority, and I say to my soldiers, do this, and they do it. One word, no why, no buts, no. One word, they do it. And I say to my slave, let slaves do this, and he does it. So, say a word, and everything will be okay. And Jesus admires him for his faith. And he says, not even in Israel I have found such a faith. Imagine this statement of Jesus. Not even in Israel I have found such a faith. Amazing. Amazing. How many times Jesus admired the faith of non-Jews? How many times? We have another time of a Syriaco-Phoenician woman, a Greek woman. Greek means, on those times, Greek meant idolater, pagan. Belonged to the nations, not the Jew. Her daughter was possessed by a spirit. And she came begging Jesus to heal her. And he did. He admired her for her faith. Twice. 2 times Jesus admired the faith of non-Jews. And he said that I haven't found such a faith even in Israel. So, the faith of that person made Jesus do the healing. The faith